All right, so this is 4-7, the quadratic formula. Our learning objective is to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, and then to determine the number of solutions by using the discriminant. In case you don't remember from Algebra 1, if we have a quadratic equation that's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the quadratic formula, so the solution for x, is negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. When you are doing this in your calculator, make sure you practice a few times with the solution you actually know, because it sometimes needs some tricky parenthesis work, and I don't want y'all to know how to do it but not know how your calculator works to get the correct answer out. Okay, so when you have a quadratic, so like in A, x squared plus 4x equals negative 4, I want to move everything over on the left-hand side. So I have 0 on the right-hand side. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. Where even if it tells me to use quadratic formula, we're obligated to use the quadratic formula. So even though I know the solutions to this, we're going to see the quadratic formula in action. So A is 1, B is 4, and C is 4. So I'm going to plug that into this equation. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. The hardest part about this is simplifying everything down. We get negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 4 squared is 16. Minus 4 times 1 times 4 is also 16. 16 minus 16 is 0. Square root of 0 is 0. And negative 4, whether you add 0 or minus 0, just stays negative 4. And we get that x is equal to negative 2. The next equation, x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. Not as easy to factor as the first one. So it already has 0 on the left-hand side and everything else on the right. So all I have to do is identify A, B, and C. In this case, A is equal to 1, B is equal to 4, and C is equal to negative 3. We say negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3, all divided by 2 times A. Simplify everything down. Be careful when you have this B squared. If B is a negative, negative times negative is a positive. So just be careful that your B value, when you square it, should always come out positive. So we get negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 12, because I had a negative 4 and I have a negative 3. Negative times negative is positive. 2 times 1 is 2. Simplify that down even more. Negative 4 plus or minus square root 16 plus 12 is 28. Divided by 2. 28 is 4 times 7. I know 4 is a perfect square, so I can go ahead and square root and get 2 and take that out. The square root of 7 stays in there. So now I have negative 4 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 7. And both of those terms are divisible by 2, so I'm going to go ahead and divide it by 2. So it's negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. 2 times the square root of 7 divided by 2 is the square root of 7. So my answer is negative 2 plus square root of 7 and negative 2 minus square root of 7. Okay, so we're going to talk about the discriminant. The discriminant is a portion of the quadratic equation, and if we evaluate the discriminant before we do anything else, we can determine if our equation has one solution, no solutions, or two solutions. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And when my discriminant, when I evaluate it, is bigger than 0, it's going to have two real solutions. And the reason that works is because if this is bigger than 0, then I have a value here, and it's going to be plus or minus, plus 1 minus the other two solutions. If my discriminant is equal to 0, well, it doesn't matter if I plus or minus a 0, it's still 0. I'm only going to have one solution, and it's just going to touch the x-axis. My discriminant b squared minus 4ac, when it is less than 0, I get a negative value underneath the root, and I have no solutions. So we can use the discriminant, which is a part of the quadratic equation, to tell us if we have, how many real solutions we have. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have all your items on the left-hand side of the equation and 0 on the right. Then you want to identify what A, B, and C are. So for this problem, I'm sorry, A is 2. If I can get the numbers right. B is negative 3, and C is 7. So my discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So it's going to be negative 3. Please, when you have a negative, put it in parentheses before you square it. That'll keep your signs correct, so your answer is correct. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 7 is 56. 9 minus 56 is negative 47. So we have our discriminant is less than 0, so we have no solutions. All right, so for this equation, we're going to move 6x and 5 over to the left-hand side of the equation, and we get x squared minus 6x minus 5 equals 0. Then we have to identify our A, B, and C. A is 1, B is negative 6, and C is negative 5. Then we plug it into b squared minus 4ac. Negative 6, please, 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 parenthesis that. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. This is 36. Negative and a negative give me a positive. I got 36 plus 20 is 56. Since this is greater than 0, I have two solutions. The question is not asking what are the solutions, it's just asking how many. So before we get all crazy, figuring out the discriminant, because if we have to do quadratic formula anyway, we're going to have to know what that value is. But if we find the discriminant first, we can say, oh, I don't have any solutions, so why bother with the quadratic equation? Or I have two solutions.
It's just like the first step to figure out if you need to use the quadratic formula in general.
Right. And you can do the same thing by graphing it, but sometimes you don't have your graphing utility out. So, yeah, and that's it.